everyone. Good evening. I'm Shreya Dhondial. As always, it is good to see you. The new year has started on an interesting note on the India-China front. First, sweets between the two sides were exchanged at the LAC, including friction points in eastern Ladakh. And the very same day, Global Times tweeted out a glossy propaganda video of the PLA unfurling the red flag supposedly in Galwan. It had PSYOPs written all over it and was soon busted as such. Then came something that is far more worrying. The Chinese building a bridge connecting the north and south bank of Pangong Tso at breakneck speed. My guests this evening are three of India's most respected voices in India's strategic circles. They will help us understand how we view the three provocations coming from the northern front. And I say three, though I did speak of only about two, because we want to talk about China renaming 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh as well. That is something that we'll touch upon as well. Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, old friend of CNN News 18, joining us this evening. Sir, thank you very much. Professor Brahmachalani, he's a strategic affairs expert, and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash is a former diplomat. To all three of you, first of all, a very, very happy new year. I hope it's a healthy and a safe one. General Hasnain, I'm going to start with you. Help me understand this. And this is a simple question that many people will ask. China's infrastructure build-up in the last 2 years at the LAC is very well documented. While disengagement talks have continued, the Chinese have rapidly built everything from dual-use villages to roads to permanent habitats to heliports to reinforce their military positions. Is the Pangong Bridge part of that saga, or does it signify something much more?
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you very much for inviting me to your show, and a happy new year to you and to all our viewers and to my fellow panelists. Very interesting question, but let me detach this bridge from everything else. To my mind, this bridge is a operational level activity which is going on. All the others that we have spoken of are generally at the strategic level. Now, my view may be a little awkward on this. I've studied this quite deeply today. I know this area very well, having served there. I am aware fully that the whole issue is about reaction from the north bank to the south bank. We surprised the Chinese on the night of 29th, 30th August 2020 on the south bank. They didn't have enough troops in the Spangur Gap. They didn't have enough troops in the Moldo garrison. There isn't sufficient space to keep those kind of troops. So they do deploy north of the Pangong Tso and would always like to come to the south in a quicker time frame. As you yourself just now said, it takes 12 hours to cover those 200 kilometers or more. This bridge will cut it down to about 4 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours. Now you got to look at this in a different perspective. The Chinese could have constructed this bridge any time in the last couple of years, many years. They could have constructed it last year, but they're constructing it primarily because they are worried. Now, this may sound strange to you. They are actually worried by India's offensive stance. The stance taken on the 29th of August 2020, the fact that India now has an offensive content. There are armored regiments and mechanized infantry units galore in eastern Ladakh at the moment. Any of them can take off and cut off the famous Highway 2192. The Chinese are worried. Let's look at it from that angle for a change. Why are we always concerned about looking at it from a defensive angle? That the Chinese are going to stop us from occupying the Kailash range like hell. They cannot stop us from occupying the Kailash range if we want to occupy it. Unless they precede us there, right? Unless they place troops there. We can be there in a jiffy, and they can do nothing about it. They can only bring troops in and respond to it. They are trying to cut down that time to respond to any offensive action that we may be thinking or contemplating at this time. Overall, if you look at this bridge, it's a defensive measure by the Chinese. It's not an offensive measure at all. It's a defensive measure. For a change, China has got its tail between its legs, and the Indian army has got them under pressure. That's the way to look at it.
Okay. Professor Chilani, is that how you're looking at it, the bridge being a reflection of China's worry? Because the other way to look at it is that A, why build the bridge now? And B, they'll be in a better position to mobilize their troops and their weaponry. So it is something that India should view with concern, Professor Chilani.
I think I answered all that you have just
Yes, yes. But my question is now to Professor Chilani to see if he has a different point of view.
Well, first, India remains locked in its worst border standoff with China. This is the worst confrontation between the two countries, even if you include 1962 war. The 1962 war was a short war, relatively speaking, while this confrontation has been ongoing for more than 20 months. On the good side, as far as India is concerned, India has stood up to China's aggression by locking horns in tense military standoffs, despite the risk of a full-scale war. Unfortunately, this confrontation is attracting very little international attention. The question is, what are China's motives? This frenzied construction of war infrastructure, this is war-fighting infrastructure.
Correct.
What are China's motives? Those motives could be threefold. One, it could be to wage war at a time of its choosing. Two, it could be to exert military pressure on India in the long run, to maintain sustained military pressure on India. And the third could be that they intend to wage unrestricted war against India, as they have been doing. Unrestricted war is war below the threshold of open conflict. Today, China is sitting pretty. It has secured the land grabs it wanted. Pangong was always the red herring. It wanted Deep Sunk. It got the deep encroachment in Deep Sunk. It is not withdrawing from even Dame Chok. It has the land grabs that it sought when it carried out the serial aggression. But it also foisted buffer zones largely on its terms in 3 Ladakh areas, including Galwan, Pangong included. So having secured what it wanted, its third option could be to wage unconventional forms of warfare against India in the long run.
Okay.
But coming specifically to the question of this bridge over Pangong, India is paying for its folly in withdrawing from the Kailash Heights. That was India's main leverage. As you know from India's post-independence history, we have repeatedly surrendered at the negotiating table the major gains from the sacrifices of the fallen. The same story has been repeated. The sacrifices made by those who captured Kailash Heights was surrendered as part of a small deal related to the Pangong region alone, the red herring.
Okay.
And that was India's Chinese New Year gift to the CCP. That deal was reached in time for the Chinese New Year, so that China could withdraw its troops from the north and the south banks of the Pangong. And now we are in the calendar New Year, and just in 10, 11 months, we have seen China's aggressive intentions unfold.
Yes, and the question, this question is being asked all around, that was it a mistake to climb down from the strategic heights of Kailash? We do have another segment to go, and I want to keep time for that, for China's PSYOPs. Ambassador Prakash, I'm going to come to you here with the politics of it. Can India really complain about China building infrastructure on their side? There has been a bit of political questioning happening in India, courtesy Mr. Gandhi. Is that questioning counterproductive?
Well, the questioning is not counterproductive if we talk of the strategic community, of the leadership, the intelligentsia. It is not, because you know what politics is all about. It is avoidable, but unfortunately that is the kind of politics that some sections of the Indian polity engages in. My concern is the narrative. My concern is the public perception. Now, what happens is that when you continue with this kind of misinformation, war, you continue with repeating it 1,000 times. And we all know that unlike India, in China, the media, the social media, they are all controlled by the government. They speak in the same voice. So it is the narrative that gets a bit challenged. Now, I am not at all saying that we should be reacting to any and every statement that is put out by or any article
Ambassador
that comes
Prakash, we'll
out.
come to that in just a bit, because I even want to tell our viewers what the context of what you're saying is. My quick question to you in 30 seconds, then, if you could tell me whether India is even in a position to complain about the infrastructure buildup that China is doing on their side. What we simply need to do is mirror them.
Yeah, I don't think that we can complain, because it is China which normally complains, and the big power syndrome is do as I say, not as I do. But they are doing it on their side. They have always been building infrastructure. I'm very happy that we have now caught on to that. But there is a gap, and we need to stay steadfast to reduce the gap and increase our strategic leverage.
Okay.
Shreya.
General Hasnain and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash continue to be with us. Gentlemen, I have exactly 4 minutes and I have 2 questions to ask. General Hasnain, I'm coming to you first. Please explain to me and to our viewers, where is the need for these niceties and exchanging of sweets even at friction areas at the LAC? Why normalize the situation on the ground at the LAC? All is not well. We know it. Then why this facade?
See, Shreya, first of all, this happens on the LOC also. It is now for the first time I'm seeing it at the LAC. These are contributory efforts to try and bring about goodwill, to make sure that troops meet, they look at each other, they understand each other a little better, and hopefully do away with any kind of a tension which may be existing locally. That's the prime concern for it, nothing more. But the overall message which is going through the actions which the Chinese have taken is more important. I'll use a couple of cliches to explain this. The first, the Chinese are 10 feet tall. This is what the Chinese want to convey to you all the time. The Chinese are 10 feet tall, the Indians are smaller than them. The second thing, hot and cold. This is all hot and cold warfare. This is all sweet and sour warfare. One day good, next day bad. This is to create utter confusion in the minds of the adversary, that the adversary is thinking that you are friendly, the next day he's an adversary again. Caution and coercion. Caution and coercion. These are all cliched aspects of China's psychological warfare. It's happened for years. It's very crude. They were the first ones who tried to learn from if you remember the Gulf War conditions in 1990,
sure.
It's a part of their 3 warfare strategy, which they adopted in 2003, right? They don't necessarily succeed each time, but they keep repeating it. As you very correctly said, they keep repeating a lie 1,000 times. It may very well become the truth.
Sure.
But this is what it is. And I can also tell you this at the same time. There is nothing very efficient about the Chinese, about the PLA attempting to do anything that they wish to do. Even what they're doing at the moment in the terms of the construction of the bridge is essentially a defensive matter, which they're trying to show as a very offensive intent.
Okay.
So, to my mind, there's nothing for us to worry really about.
Okay, there is nothing for us to worry, but Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, you have said, we understand PSYOPs, right? We understand that in asymmetrical warfare, in hybrid warfare, psychological operations are a given by all armies across the world. But you are saying there is a worrying aspect. I want to ask you whether you're more worried about this joke of a video that the Chinese put out from Galwan, from what they said was Galwan, or the renaming of 15 names in Arunachal Pradesh. What are they trying to do here?
They will continue, Shreya, to needle India. They will continue that. It will be unremitting. They will do whatever it takes. My reading is that they do not want conflict. Nobody wants conflict. But short of conflict, to keep India on tenterhooks, to sow dissent in India, to raise questions in India, to keep India bogged down at the LSE, is what their plan is. So we will see this continuously, but they will also be lying in wait. In case they see an opening, they will try to embarrass India. I think that these gestures of exchanging sweets, etc., are completely lost on our Chinese friends, because they only understand the message of power. And we have been making lots of gestures. Right from agreeing that Tibet should be an autonomous region of China, to recently to say that we will participate in the Winter Olympics.
Correct.
None of these gestures have any impact on China. They are hard-nosed negotiators, and that is the only way to deal forward, deal from a position of strength.
Okay.
Shreya.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, for your time here on CNN News 18 on Debrief. General Atta Hasnain, always good to have you on the show as well. So thank you very much for joining us. The one thing to remember is this is a deceitful neighbor you are dealing with. You simply need to be careful. You need to be careful because China is a neighbor that will talk Wuhan but walk Doklam. That's all there is to be said to it. The story, as I said, is just beginning, already 2 years on, but the no peace, no war situation at the LAC will continue for the foreseeable future. That is something that India needs to be ready with. I'm going to wrap the show there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you once again tomorrow. Good night.